Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Moore and I'm your instructor for strategy and tactics, and today I want to talk with you a little bit about incident action plans. As you can see on the slide in front of you, they can either be written or unwritten. When they need to be written down, these are going to be long-term incidents that last multiple operational periods, especially as it relates to natural disasters where FEMA is going to come in and reimburse you or your municipality with federal dollars. Much like Hurricane Harvey, let's say, that's just hit, or Irma. FEMA is going to go down there and they're going to start reimbursing some of these municipalities with federal funds. Well, if your municipality didn't have these incident action plans written down and in place, along with several other ICS forms, FEMA takes a very dim view of that, and they have at times kept people from receiving those federal funds as reimbursement for the funds they expended during this natural disaster, or at least it's taken quite some time for those funds to come through. So on long-term incidents lasting multiple operational periods, those incident action plans must be written down. On hazardous materials incidents, where you have a need for multiple hazardous materials technicians, you have to have a hazardous materials technician function as your safety officer. You're going to need to write those incident action plans down as well. However, on fast-moving dynamic incidents like house fires, those things do not require the incident action plan to be written down. A lot of times they're fast-moving, they require decisions to be made very quickly, and they do not require a written incident action plan. So now we're going to get to the nuts and bolts of what makes an incident action plan. Our class text goes fairly in-depth in this area, which is good. However, it is at a ICS 300 and 400 level. Again, that's not bad. But most of us are at that ICS 200 level, where maybe we don't really even understand quite how incident action plans are developed, much less initiated. So, what I want to do is, instead of focusing on those incident action plans that must be written down, instead of taking it quite as in-depth as our class text does, what I want to do is focus on how to develop these incident action plans for those incidents that do not require it to be written down. So let's think about it in terms of a structure fire. When you roll up on scene and you do your initial size up, you're going to develop incident objectives. In other words, you're going to look at the scene and what you have, and you're going to determine what you want to see happen as a result. So you're going to look at the fire conditions and the smoke conditions and ask yourself what they tell you. You're going to address rescue. Are there known occupants trapped? Does it need to be ventilated? Are there exposures that are threatened? And do you have enough resources coming to the scene to accomplish all the objectives that you're going to set? Once size up has been completed, it's time to set those incident objectives. So let's take a look at fire control. So long as we don't have a known victim entrapment, fire control would most likely, in most cases, become our first objective. So think about the fire and smoke conditions. Given what you saw in your size up, did you decide to make an offensive interior attack, or will this be a defensive operation? In any case, fire control is the objective. So you want to see the fire controlled, and you will create a strategy later on in order to accomplish that. So your first objective is to control the fire. Second, the structure must be searched. So search and rescue becomes your second incident objective. It doesn't matter how many floors there are or how many stories. You want them all searched. You want a primary search done and you want a secondary search done. So search and rescue becomes your second incident objective. Ventilation. Again, it doesn't matter how many stories this structure has. If it needs to be ventilated, that becomes an incident objective. Next, exposures. Are there other houses or other structures that are threatened by this fire? If so, they will need to be protected. In which case, exposures becomes another incident objective. Salvage. Again, regardless of how many stories it is, if salvage is something that you want to see happen, then it becomes an incident objective. Overhaul. If overhaul is something you want to see, and it's something we want to see on every fire, so on every fire it actually is an incident objective, because we need to pull some sheetrock, maybe we need to take cabinets down, we need to get up in the attic and root around or get up under the crawl space and make sure that that fire hasn't gone somewhere where we haven't seen it yet and is not just sitting there lurking waiting to come back alive on us. So we overhaul. So that's also an incident objective you want to see happen. And there could be others. But once you develop these incident objectives, it's time to create strategies in order to address those incident objectives. And we'll pick that up on the next slide. Once incident objectives have been developed, it's time to create strategies that will ensure those objectives are complete. On the slide previous, fire control was our first incident objective. So now, as the incident commander, it's time to develop a strategy that will address that incident objective. So let's think about this imaginary call as if it were a single-story residential structure on which we were going to make an offensive interior attack. So, as the incident commander, in order to address fire control, I will assign a Division 1 supervisor. Remember, interior divisions are numbered depending on which floor you are on. And as this is a single-story structure, he will be Division 1. So I will assign a Division 1 supervisor, and I will give him my incident objective of fire control. And I will also give him personnel so that he can accomplish the task. It's his job, if, while he's in the middle of completing this incident objective I've given him, he decides he doesn't have enough resources, to request them from me, the incident commander, and then it becomes my job to make sure he gets what he needs in order to accomplish the objectives that I've given him. Well, this Division 1 supervisor is already going to have people inside working to extinguish the fire. So, it's my purview as the incident commander to also assign him, it was a little bit lower on our list, but I'm going to assign him the incident objective of overhaul as well. So I want him to overhaul the structure, and I'm going to communicate these things to him. And if we really wanted to get deep into it, I would be communicating to him with each goal that I want. Let's say I want fire control completed in X amount of time. Check back with me in X amount of time and give me a CAN report. What are the conditions? What are the actions that you're taking? And what do you need from me? And so I'd be asking him to give me CAN reports in a timely fashion so that I know what's going on. And those are called SMART objectives. So I would give that Division 1 supervisor 2 objectives. You have fire control and you have overhaul as your responsibility. And he is my strategy for making sure that that happens. So next, our next incident objective on that list was search and rescue. So this is a single story structure, but it really wouldn't matter if it were multiple stories. Search and rescue is going to become a group. They're a function. So a division is a geographical area. So that geographical area of the first floor is what my Division 1 supervisor is going to have his people operating in. So he's Division 1, that's a geographical area. Well, search and rescue is going to be a function. It wouldn't matter how many stories this structure were. Search and rescue would be carried out by that same group supervisor and his people. So he's going to be a group and not a division because he's got a function. So I would create a search and rescue group supervisor, and I would give him the objective of searching the building. I want a primary search done and a secondary search done. I want it done in this amount of time. Check back with me in this amount of time and give me a CAN report. Our next incident objective was ventilation. So in order to make that happen, I would assign, again, a vent group supervisor, because ventilation is a function. It's not confined to one geographical area. It can happen on multiple geographical areas, just like search and rescue, so it becomes a function. Therefore, it gets a group supervisor. So I will give the ventilation group supervisor that objective to ventilate the building, and I'm going to additionally tell him that he needs to communicate with the Division 1 supervisor so he doesn't burn them up by venting at the wrong time. So that's his job. And last, on this list at least, if I wanted to see the structure salvaged, I would assign a salvage group supervisor and give him people and give him resources. The problem comes in, and you probably already are aware of it, because as you look down that list, you think, do we really have enough people on scene to carry out all of these functions? And that is a good question. The answer may be no. So, what do you do? Well, here's what you do. Your incident objectives are still going to stay the same, and they're still going to be prioritized. So what is your number one incident objective? What do you want to see happen more than anything? And then what's your second objective? What do you want to see happen immediately after the first? And then what's your third? So once you get that straight, you staff what functions you have people available for. So if you can only meet 2 objectives at one time, then control the fire and complete search and rescue. Once those 2 objectives have been complete, if you need to, then you can put your people in rehab. And then once they've been rehabbed, you can reassign them other objectives. So let's say my search and rescue team comes out, and since this is a single-story structure, they really didn't go through too much air, and they're really not spent, so I don't have to put them in rehab because they haven't gone through a bottle. So let's say I assign them to ventilation and make a vent group supervisor and give them the objective to ventilate the structure and communicate with the Division 1 supervisor in order to make sure they're not doing it wrong where he doesn't want them to do it. So that's how you take care of it. If you don't have enough people on scene, or you're struggling to get resources to the scene, take care of what you can take care of first. Rehab your people if you need to, and then you can assign them more incident objectives down your list. Limited resources. So it's important to reiterate this when it comes to incident action plans. If you have limited resources, let's say you're a volunteer organization or maybe a paid-on-call or combination organization, and you just don't have many people on scene yet, what do? Well, it's not a problem, because as you did your 360 size up and you created your incident objectives, if you did it well, you prioritized them. So kind of like in the picture below, from left to right, we've got our number 1 priority, our number 2 priority, number 3, number 4, number 5. So if you only have enough people to staff the first 2 strategies that you've created to complete your incident objectives, that's okay. So assign a Division 1 supervisor and give him enough people to carry out his incident objective. And then assign a search and rescue group supervisor and give him enough people to accomplish the objective you've handed him. Once those objectives are accomplished, maybe search and rescue is accomplished first, then you can free those guys up and then create a vent group supervisor out of that team and then assign them the objective of ventilation. Let's say those 3 objectives are complete now, and you rehab all those people. And now once they're rehabbed, they're available to carry out other incident objectives. And number 4 over there, exposure. Let's talk about a little bit about exposure. So when it comes to exposures, they might be threatened, but they might not be in danger of catching on fire immediately. So what is the best way to protect them? Likely it will be to extinguish the fire that you have, because if you don't, they will become threatened in the future. Maybe you think 10 minutes or 15 minutes. If you can get the fire knocked out, then that is going to be the most effective way of protecting that exposure. So maybe it actually comes off of your incident command tree there as one of your incident objectives because it was taken care of once the fire was extinguished. And so now you have salvage left. Finally, let's talk about the 3 action levels that exist at every incident. First, the strategic level, where the incident commander operates. He develops incident objectives, and then he creates strategies in order to make sure those objectives are complete. And so he operates at the strategic level. Next, your division and group supervisors operate at the tactical level. Those are the strategies that we've created to make sure that these incident objectives are complete. So these division and group supervisors that we've created are at the tactical level. It's their job to select the appropriate tactic for the incident objective or objectives that they've been given. The problem comes in when incident commanders try and move down to the tactical level. My division and group supervisors, the strategies that I create when I show up on a scene, all know that I'm not going to try and lead their people out from under them. I'm not going to get involved in their tactics. What I don't have a problem with is when one of those division group supervisors comes to me and they ask my opinion on something. Maybe they want to try a new tactic that they have yet to try in the field and are looking for my feedback. Maybe they have not seen this particular situation before and want my opinion. That's fine. Otherwise, I expect that they know how to accomplish the objectives that I've given them, which is why I put them in as a division or group supervisor in the first place. So, incident commanders, stay out of tactics unless you just cannot help it, unless you've just got so much inexperience on your fire ground that they really do need that extra leading, that extra hands-on. Otherwise, stay out of tactics. If you trust your people and you've got people that know what they're doing, they're up on their training, let them do their job. Don't lead their people out from under them. And then last, there's that task level. These are the teams and companies, the actual boots on the ground that are cutting holes in the roof, that are stretching the hose line into the house, that are extinguishing the fire. They're the actual people that are doing the work. So lastly, what I want you to understand about, as we wrap this up, about incident action plans, it's a process. And I know that as you look through the slides and you think about how much time this might take, and do you have to fill this form out? Like, there's this slide and scale, structure fires move way too fast, I really can't do this. You're already operating on an incident action plan whether you realize it or not. Because likely, when you show up, you're already identifying incident objectives. Either you're operating on your own incident action plan or you're operating on one that somebody else has developed, because they have things they want to see accomplished. We all want the same things. We all want the fire extinguished. We all want search and rescue completed. We want exposures protected. We want ventilation to happen. We want salvage and overhaul complete. So we all have these incident objectives already in our mind. It's just, are they organized? Do we have them as priorities in our mind so that we know when we have limited personnel how we can best carry out these incident objectives? So we're already operating on incident action plans. We just may not be thinking about it in that way. And I hope that I've helped kind of really break this down in a way that's understandable. If you're still kind of struggling on what an incident action plan is, by all means, either email me or call me, and we'll discuss it a little further. I just realized that in the book, it goes a lot deeper, and it's good. It's all good material. But what I really want for you is a basic understanding of what this incident action plan is, and I hope that we've done that here. So thank you so much.